Basketball fans, your Toronto Raptors sit at 500 after splitting the mini-series in South Beach. This is Raptors Today, featuring myself, Sherm and Jonsey, breaking down the news for your Toronto Raptors. And we'll start, of course, with the big news. Christian Koloko was the starter, but the finisher in the end happened to be Precious Achiuwa. Gentlemen, let's talk about the performance that he had. Big on the boards, very important for this Toronto Raptors group as they try to find their footing. Sherm, talk to me about what you saw from Precious and the big numbers he put up.
Well, it was pretty impressive when you talk about coming off the bench and having a franchise high in rebounds coming off the bench. And I just thought Precious did a great job from a few different areas. We're talking about his ability to provide energy off the jump. He was moving quick. He was active when he hit the floor. And he really got hooked up with some good passes from Fred VanVleet, but also his relentlessness on the glass. He wanted to get after every rebound, and that was evident. And the Raptors had 52 rebounds in the game, and Precious had 22 of them. That shows how significant his impact was. And the most important stat might be he played over 30 minutes in the game. That means Nick Nurse valued what he was bringing. He was having positive impact. And when he's playing within himself, he can be a very effective player for the Raptors. He's just got to continue to play in that mold. And I think for Precious, if he can provide that punch on the glass and continue to make good decisions in terms of shooting the ball and moving the ball and handling the basketball, he's going to have significant impact on this team moving forward.
All right, Jonesy, it was a game that featured stretches of positive play for both teams, but in the end, it was the Toronto Raptors who dominated in that fourth quarter with their 27 points. What was the big turning point for you?
I thought the game kind of turned. Miami took their biggest lead of the game at 81-73. And then over the next 3 to 4 minutes, the Raptors did a really good job. Coaches always talk about consecutive stops. They had a missed shot and a couple turnovers in there, and all of a sudden, the 8-point lead, Miami's biggest of the game, is down to 1 at 81-80. Timeout Miami. And to me, that's when I felt the game change. I thought Toronto really epitomized it, and you've heard me say it before. You'll hear me say it again over the course of the season. Nick Nurse's mantra, and he has been on this since training camp, he says to his guys, no matter what, just keep playing. And that encompasses a whole bunch of stuff. When things aren't going well, I mean, they weren't having a great game. They were struggling offensively. Both teams at one point shooting under 37%. Doesn't matter. Just keep grinding. Just keep trying to make the next play the one that turns things around. I thought in that stretch in the fourth quarter, that's when it happened. They finished on a 25-9, 25-8 or 9 run to end the game. That was a big part of it, and they made some shots coming home when it counted.
All right, now all campaign long so far this year, they've talked about managing the minutes of the starters, getting a rest for Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam. Injuries have tampered with the bench a little bit, but finally Chris Boucher returns, 12 minutes. Sure, there was some foul trouble, but what did you see from the young man once he finally got injected into the lineup?
Impact right away. Chris Boucher hit the floor, and you could see that he was itching to play, itching to get out there. I thought his energy, his ability to change ends of the floor was evident right away. Obviously, he's going to knock down some three-point shots because he can do that, but an efficient night of 4 for 5 from the floor. But his ability to just be active is something that the Raptors need. When you pair him with Precious, you see two guys with size who can stretch the floor, who can run the floor, who can defend and rebound. That's significant impact coming off the bench. And we all know this. When you come off the bench, you have to maintain or raise the level of play. And right now, if Nick Nurse wants to get less minutes for his starters, that bench has to come into the game and provide impact right away and consistent impact to alleviate those minutes. So I think Chris Boucher did a great job for his first game, got into some foul trouble, quick 4 fouls when he hit the floor, but he ended up with 5 fouls. But I like the fact that he was going after it, he was playing hard, he was being aggressive, and coaches will say this all the time. If you're going to make mistakes, make them out of aggression. Don't make them passively. And Chris Boucher was trying to do the right thing, got the bad end of the whistle, but I thought he had significant impact.
All right, well, no practice today for the Toronto Raptors, but they did we obviously got into the locker room post-game in Miami, so we'll hand you over to Nick Nurse with his post-game thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the stops were big. I really liked how I thought we stayed aggressive in our pace up the floor. I thought we got the ball, and Precious got the ball and gave it to Fred, pretty much time and again, and we were running and pushing, and I think that helped us, get a couple of not transition buckets, so to speak, but some early offense, which we needed. And then I think Pascal just did a better job in the fourth of reading the situation, you know. They sure did a good job on him. It didn't quite look like it did the other night. Last night it was, or the other night it was in the second half pretty easy for him to see what was going on, and tonight it wasn't. But he did finally make the adjustment. Then obviously we hit, you know, the game on the line, we hit some really big shots. Pascal hits a turnaround. Gary hits a three. Right, those were one possession to make them two possession buckets. You know, in the last minute, I think both of them. So, and our defense, the fourth quarter defense was tough. It was just we were just doing the right things and helping the right way and making them take tough shots for the most part.
You had talked before the game about needing to get more from Precious, rebounding and running. Did you see that more tonight? You get 16, 17 rebounds, like.
I didn't really notice him out there tonight, Doug. I mean, no, yeah. I mean, listen, he's again. No, that's a little bit of a explosion, right? Or a lot of bit of one, right? But he does have that. You know, he's got super. Blessed with super body and athleticism and power, and you know he should be a near double-digit rebounder for us, right? And. So he was going after him tonight, that's for sure. Yeah, and I think that, you know, we know we've got to guard and create some offense out of our defense. And in both those wins, it was at the right time. You know, fourth quarter D generating, you know, fourth quarter offense, which is a pretty important time of the game. And it just, I don't know, for whatever reason, but it's good. I mean, I know you got to kind of feel your way through. You got to figure out what they're doing. You got to make your adjustments on who's guarding who, what you're switching, what you're not, and all that stuff. And I think we you know, it kind of takes us to feel through the game that way. But the main thing is are we pressuring the ball and are we guarding the ball well enough? You know, and I thought we did. I thought there was not as many. I mean, even the times we did get beat on the drive tonight, they were pretty like flip high arcing layups rather than straight line drives where we didn't have any. You know, help was coming and they had to make some tougher shots, and those you're going to have to probably live with. So we just did a better job of guarding the ball and rounding out the drives.
Talking Raptors brand basketball and, of course, the housekeeping that's most important. Scottie Barnes listed as day-to-day as they wait on that ankle injury to find out more. The news, of course, for Christian Koloko was, guess what, young man? You're getting your first NBA start, a little extra run for you. Your impressions and your thoughts on the decision to give Koloko the start instead of Precious or someone else.
You know, I'm not surprised, Akil, and a lot of people would look and say, well, Precious isn't the natural guy. But, you know, coaches often work off the premise of least disruption. So now when you put Precious in the starting lineup, that has already changed the starting lineup. Now you're changing your bench rotation. Roles are different. A guy knows what he's doing coming off the bench. So I'm not surprised by it at all. And you look at Koloko, and I just love the kid's game. He can run, he can jump, he's active, he's mobile. He's not your typical stilted, stiff, you know, unable to move, inflexible big guy. And I thought that was a good move by Nick Nurse to put him in. Now, the youngster got, you know, Sherm talked about it with Boucher. He got some excuse me fouls. He didn't get a great whistle, but I thought, you know, he scored a hoop in there, blocked some shots, was a presence. He sets good screens, and he's a guy you don't have to worry about on the offensive end. He'll go get it on the offensive glass. He'll finish stuff in the dunker spot. So he's very low maintenance in that sense, and he gives you a lot on the defensive end. So I'm not surprised by it. And if you're the youngster, you're probably just itching to get more. Like it's kind of like my golf game, Akil. A bad shot. No, put the ball back. Let me try that again. I bet you Koloko's just dying to get back in there.
All right, so let's talk about Scottie Barnes now. First was a shoulder injury, but he got back into the game, and then it was the ankle. He's had ankle injuries all summer long, kind of nursed his way back to health. How concerned are you for this young man's season with these new developments?
Well, obviously you don't want this to become a trend where he's injured and he's having similar injuries to similar parts of his body. Clearly, Scottie Barnes is such an important part of what the Raptors want to do, not only this season, but in the future. And I think for Scottie, he's got a very good body. You can see that as he continues to fill out and continues to build his body, he's a prototypical frame for an NBA player. When you talk about dimensions and lengths, he's got it all. But for Scottie, it's more than just his physical ability, his mind, his ability to assess and understand what needs to happen on the floor with the ball in his hands in lifetime. It's phenomenal for such a young player. Without Scottie on the floor, there are some positives, though. You want him there, but the positive is the ball's in Fred's hands, and Fred can make good decisions. We saw against the Miami Heat on Monday his ability to find teammates. He had 9 assists. He made big threes down the stretch, went 4 of 6 from the three-point line, scored over 20 points. So you're not completely in a bad situation if the ball has to go back into Fred's hands and he's playing pick and roll. So that's a luxury for the Raptors. But without a doubt, hands down, you want Scottie Barnes on the floor, and you want him available every time you need him on the floor. And right now, him being injured impacts the way the Raptors want to play, especially on the defensive end, with his ability to switch and match up on different size players.
We're all waiting for the news on what's next for Scottie, but let's talk about the three-point shooting for this group, sitting around 40% from deep. And let's face it, it's a concern for this team coming in. And the two guys that can really change that, Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., they can space the floor for this team. What do they need to do, and how are they actually executing that on the floor right now for this Raps team?
I think they're doing a good job. I mean, we talk about the three-point shooting. They made 14. They were 14 of 32 in the game against Miami. But 5 of those 14 came in that 25-point run to end the game. A lot of them coming from Fred and Gary. And, you know, when you have Pascal Siakam handling the ball and he's working in that mid-range area, he's working in that pinch post, his office becoming around the foul line, and he's bobbing and weaving and herky-jerky and getting into the lane, alarm bells go off for the defense. They collapse. Now, it's not even a matter of swinging the ball. It's a straight line pass out to a wing or into a corner or back to the top behind him, where you've got a guy like Fred or Gary Trent. And once they get their feet set, that's a great look for them. Those are practice shots. So I love the way the Raptors are moving the ball. Pascal's handling it. They've got other capable three-point shooters too. We talk about Fred and Gary, but OG's knocking down threes. Pascal can knock down threes. Precious is coming off the bench, can shoot threes. So I don't think the three-point shooting is going to be as big a concern as people think it is.
All right, we talked about the Raptors snipers. Now time to hear from them themselves. It's Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., and Precious Achiuwa.
Yeah, I think so. I think at least until we smooth the ship out a little bit, I think, you know, we're going to be in a lot of close games. And I think all of our games, whether we start that way or not, are probably going to go down to the wire. You know, all 4 now have been within 3 points. So coming down the stretch, you got to be able to execute. I was pretty happy with the shots we were getting. Got some stops late and just was able to close out, make a couple plays.
What is it about this group? Because you've been playing close games now for a year and a half. Like, what is it about this group that creates that kind of energy and intensity late in games?
Well, I think first and foremost, you know, the talent level is pretty high. So on most nights, we got a chance to compete. We have a chance to win. And so you would like to see some growth in terms of executing and, you know, just closing out games down the stretch. And we saw that over the last couple of years. So it's going to continue to be a process. But I thought we did a good job of just making extra plays tonight. We really wanted to win, and that's what it takes. You can't take anything for granted in this league. And I thought we just had a little bit more of a chip on our shoulder, a little more energy, obviously, but just a little bit more of a chip to pull it out tonight.
To get the ball to you, did it look big from your end on that final three?
I don't really know. It was just in the moment. He made a good pass, and I just knocked down the shot.
He said he's been sort of on you to get into the corners. I mean, is that natural for you to get to the corner, or is that your spot? Where do you prefer to be?
You know, anywhere my teammates need me to be. The coach has been harping it. He's been harping it. Run the floor, get to the corner. Even if I don't get a shot, shoot the ball well enough to even me running to the corner would make a man come with me. So if I don't even get the shot, just me going corner, give somebody else opportunity. So that's just to help with our offense.
There's points of that game where it looked like you were getting open look and open looks and open
Wide
looks.
open.
And the defense, or I should say, and the offense was kind of struggling. And how frustrating is that as a shooter when, you know, everything's perfect and they're not going in, and then you come out in the fourth and you hit 2 huge ones?
No, for sure. As a scorer that can shoot, it can be very frustrating. You know, obviously you put in countless reps and hours, but that's why you stay with it. Continue to believe in yourself, continue to believe in your craft and your work, and, you know, the rest will take care of itself. No matter what it is, keep head right, teammates tell you keep going, everybody believe in one another. So, you know, it's that type of vibe.
How much do you prioritize defensive rebounding in order to achieve those goals?
I mean, it's part of it. You know, like you said, you already said 18 out of the 22 are defensive rebounds. So for me, I have defensive goals in terms of like being one of those guys that's been talked about on the defensive side of the ball game across the league. So that's just, I think that kind of works or plays in the same things that I'm trying to accomplish this year.
Is that like the top priority, like in terms, because there's so many elements to defense?
I mean, there's a lot of elements. I think the most important one is stopping the player from scoring the ball, and then of course finishing with a rebound.
The Philadelphia 76ers came into this season with championship-level aspirations, and what a disappointing start. 0-3 finally got their first win Monday night. Sherm, I'll talk to you about the Philly fans calling for potentially Doc Rivers' head. How hungry will this team be when they come to the Scotiabank Arena on Wednesday night to play this Toronto Raptors team?
Well, first of all, Philly fans are ruthless. They are very strong and proud of their team. And when their team's not doing well, they will hold nothing back and let their feelings be known. I will say this, Philadelphia does have championship aspirations. You could argue the last 2 seasons, Joel Embiid made a very strong case to be the MVP and didn't get it. And Joel Embiid has had some injury history that has prevented him prior to that to being consistently on the floor. So they need to maximize those years of Joel Embiid when he's on the floor consistently throughout the course of the season, producing at a high level. You bring a James Harden in, and James Harden now looks like he's in shape to play basketball. I think last season he still looked like he was a bit off. He's looking better now. Now the issue is, I feel with this team, James Harden healthy and playing at the level he plays at is going to detract from the players around him. Yes, he's a good passer. He's a great passer, phenomenal scorer, but he dribbles the ball a lot, and that forces guys to stand around. Guys like Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, these guys need the ball as well, and they are effective and integral parts of Philadelphia's ability to attain a championship. So they've got to iron that out. And with those expectations, it becomes very difficult for Philly early to figure it out. And I think this is a great time for the Raptors to get them while they're trying to navigate that process. While James Harden is in great shape and doing what he's doing, there's a lack in Tyrese Maxey's production. Tobias Harris' production goes down. And this may be a time to get them when they're not playing well, because later in the season when they figure it out, I think they're going to be a very difficult team.
All right, Jonesy, we talk a lot about the Raptors' need for bench contribution. A team that's even worse shape is, of course, Philly. If you look at their top players and you look at the drop-off between their starters and maybe even their top 4 to the next level of guys in their team, it's gigantic. How do they kind of alleviate the pressure, and can they even fix this right now?
Well, I think they can. And, as Sherm said, it's all about figuring it out later on. And I like the additions they made to their team this year. You put P.J. Tucker into the starting lineup. He's going to give them a defensive mindset. Offensively, you get some from your defense with a guy like Tucker in the lineup. He can make a corner 3. Now you bring in energy guys like a Melton, Montrezl Harrell, and then they go out and they sign Daniel House, who can give them some 3-point shooting. So I think Daryl Morey and Elton Brand and their front office had done some things to try to address that drop-off and try to, inject some scoring and some better play from the guys not named Embiid, Harden, Harris, or Maxey. That being said, to Sherm's point, you got to figure it out. Training camp is one thing, but going into real NBA games where guys need roles defined, understand where they're going to get the ball, how they get the ball, where the scoring comes from, putting those units together, that's another thing. And I think it's going to take Philly some time, but I like the moves they made to try to shore things up going forward.
Time to talk stars in the upcoming matchup between the Toronto Raptors and the Philly 76ers. And Sherm talked about it earlier. Embiid has been, in my personal opinion, the MVP because he does it on both ends. No shots at Jokic, but he does it on both ends. And he's been the MVP for this team also. The Toronto Raptors have built their team around length and strength at all positions, but they do have Christian Koloko now. But how do they handle the traditional big with the skill set of Joel Embiid in the middle?
We got the camera rolling, right? Akil and I agree on something, because I think Embiid is the MVP too, because he does, present a presence at the other end, at the defensive end. That's one of the things I think the Raptors need to do. He is a good defender. He's a decent defender, but go at him. And don't let a guy who's that good on offense rest on the other end of the floor. And then Toronto's had some success against Embiid, the way they've played him. They send double teams at him. Yes, I know he's used to seeing double teams. He's seen all kinds of double teams over the course of his career because of his size and his offensive proficiency. But that still doesn't mean you don't do it. And the Raptors are really good at coming at him depending on where he gets it. And their strategy changes. Do they come at him when he's faced up on the dribble? Do they go at him on the catch? What happens when he's in the post? Who do they come with? Where do they come from? You always see them attacking with high hands. They want the deflection. So Nick Nurse has schemed well for Joel Embiid. That doesn't always mean you stop him, but they have an idea of how they're going to attack him and what they're going to do offensively when he has the ball. And as you mentioned, Akil, a kid like Koloko, who has that length and athleticism, is another tall guy, quick guy that you can throw at him. And at times, depending on where he is, you might even want to play him one-on-one straight up for a while till the help can get there.
I'm intrigued to see how the refs will treat Koloko, though, in a matchup with a potential MVP candidate. Sherm, James Harden, they kind of thought the bubble burst with him a couple years ago, but from what we've seen so far this year, the kid's back and he's balling.
Bubble never burst with James Harden. He has the ball in his hands, and I talked about this earlier. He is a phenomenal passer. He's an amazing decision maker. He finds teammates, and he does it at such a high level, and he compromises defenses around the league because of his IQ with the ball in his hands. And I think with James Harden, because he's such a threat scoring the basketball, I mean, so far this season, averaging almost 27 points and almost 10 assists in this season. And with James Harden handling the ball, just like Jonsey talked about, sometimes you want to send a double team at him to get the ball out of his hands. You have to make those passes difficult, though. If he's making straight line passes, it's going to compromise the second line of your defense, and now your rotations are going to be late. But if they can get him to loop those passes and get the ball out of his hands, they'll give the defense a chance to react to that. But he's such a phenomenal, strong, physical player when he's going to the basket, and he's adjusted too. He wasn't getting those rip-through calls anymore, and he's adjusted to that. And now he's taking the contact, and he's not ripping through as much, but he's getting the ball up on the rim, and that's going to be a difficult thing to match up with. But James Harden handling the basketball now in shape becomes a bigger problem than ever with the Raptors, and they're going to have to be very, very sharp and decisive on their defensive rotations and decisions about how they're going to attack him.
The Toronto Raptors' tough schedule to start this season continues. They'll have 2 shots at the Philadelphia 76ers, both at home. First one comes Wednesday, 7:30 on TSN. And of course, you can catch the radio call on Sportsnet. That does it for myself, Akil Augustine. On behalf of Sherm and Jonsey, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.